Good morning, brethren. Welcome to this morning devotion. Today is another beautiful day that God has given us. Thank you for joining us for this morning devotion. The Bible in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 7 reminds us about giving. And for sure for this month, we have really dwelt on giving the last 2 months. And we'll continue sharing on giving so that we can continue empowering one another spiritually so that we can grow. And the verse that I've quoted, 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 7, talks about being a cheerful giver. That even in our giving, we should be deliberate and plan it in our heart that we are going to be givers. But what does it mean to be a cheerful giver? Why does the Bible remind us about being a cheerful giver? I believe this is a verse that is always accompanied by the call towards giving. And it's a verse that we are all familiar with. What comes to your mind when you hear the Bible calling us to be cheerful givers? Is it just a call towards giving? Or what does it remind us? This morning, I'd like us to look at it from this angle. First and foremost, what is it that God has given us? If you are to count your blessings this morning, is there anything that God has done for you? Indeed, God has done many things for us. When it comes to giving then, as an act of worship is actually showing our love towards God. So when you think about giving and giving towards God, what is it that should be in our minds? It is actually should be a reminder of what God has done in our lives. When you think about the far that God has brought you, when you think about that business and the way God has taken you through, when you think about your children, when you think about your family, the way the Lord has shepherded you, when you think about the opportunities that God has given you, when you think about maybe you have gone through difficult seasons and the way God has taken you through, indeed, you are more obliged than anyone else to be cheerful towards God. And indeed, being a cheerful giver should be a resultant or as a result of you responding to God's goodness. So being a cheerful giver means that you're actually looking back and seeing, indeed, the Lord has been good to you. Look at your life this morning. Just reflect back and ask ourselves, isn't that this far it is the Lord? Indeed, the Lord has been good to us, corporately and individually. Even for the simple gift of life, being alive this day is indeed a gift from God. Why then should we approach God grudgingly? Why then should our giving be haphazard? Indeed, every day, every single moment, we should be counting of how God has been gracious to us. Every minute that gives us to be alive, every opportunity that comes our way, every good thing that we hear from even our people who are concerned with us, even our families, those things, the successes that we are able to count each and every day, all these are attributed to God. The Bible in Psalms chapter 127 talks about God's that unless God builds a house, the builders labor in vain. That unless the Lord protects a city, the watchmen stay awake in vain. When you look at it, it's that the builders are there, the watchmen are there, but indeed the ultimate protector and builder is God. So when you look at it from that perspective and in our own lives, we are more obliged as Christians to actually worship God with our giving. And we do not worship with God with our giving because He requires it. We do it because it's an honor and a show of love. How much have we given? Can we claim to have given so much to God? Not really. Even in comparison to what He did for us, giving up His only Son to die for our sins. Can we even measure up to that standard? We cannot. We can only try, my dear brethren. So indeed, being cheerful in our giving should be a response to what God has done in our lives. Look around yourself. Look around that job that you have today, that you woke up and you're preparing to go to. Look at that opportunity that God has given in your business. Look at the way God has blessed your children. Look at the way God has protected you and your family and all that matter to you. Indeed, you are more obliged to be a cheerful giver than anyone else. When you look at the blessing that God has bestowed in your life, you are more obliged to be a cheerful giver. So giving is an act of worship. We worship our God with our giving in reference to what He has done for us. Indeed, we cannot give enough, like I said. But at times, we feel like we have gone too far, even in our giving. At times, we may even feel like the church has spoken too much about our giving. But let us remember that when even the church talks about giving, it's actually reminding us how we need to respond to this God who has been this gracious and merciful to us. My dear brethren, there's nothing that we have that is of our own. There's nothing that we would claim to have achieved in this world without our God. Indeed, it's our God who has enabled us to be where we are. And because we are even able to honor our earthly brothers and sisters, our earthly kings, how much more as Christians should we be responsible to Him who is above everyone else, to Him who is sovereign, to Him who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly in our lives, to Him who is gracious, to Him who has conquered everything, to Him who is able to do anything. There's nothing impossible to Him. How much more as Christians should we be responsive to Him? Our giving then should be a reaction towards God's providence. May the Lord help us to continue responding to how He is, to who He is, and what He has been in our lives through giving. Let's make giving a priority in our lives. Let giving be actually an act of worship to our God. When people see us as Christians, they don't see us only as people to receive, but people who can also give. And indeed, the Bible tells us that it is more blessed to give than to receive. May the Lord help us to continue embedding the act of giving as an act of worship in our lives. We cannot claim to love even the people who we see with our own eyes. We cannot claim to love them if we give them nothing. And if we know how to honor our people, our earthly brethren, then how much more should we honor people who are how should we honor God who is more superior and is unable to do more than what human beings can do? May the Lord continue helping us as Christians to continue growing spiritually, even in the area of giving, so that we can continue having wholesome worship to our God and be Christians who are impactful. May the Lord continue giving us that grace to continue accepting His teaching in the midst of issues that we go through on a daily basis. Financial challenges, physical problems. In the midst of all those things, let us always give giving a priority. Let us always remember those around us who are in need. And when we give, let us always give cheerfully. First and foremost, let us be able to respond to that which God has given us. Even in our own giving, there's that which God has given us. Let us use it as an act of worship and as an act of showing love to our neighbors. And brothers and sisters, we are not being asked. God never asked us to give what we don't have. Indeed, He gives us 100%. And he wants us to give back 10% in terms of tithes. And He wants us to remain with 90% that is blessed. Most of us would be tempted to remain with 100% that might not be blessed. Let us respond to God's love. Let us respond to God's mercy and grace through giving. May we have giving as a priority in our lives. May we be encouraged to remember that God has been gracious to us. Those things that we have, those that we see and those that we do not see, those that cost money and those that do not cost money, all these things, all good and perfect gifts come from our God. It is God who has given us these things. So when we approach Him with our giving, let it not be as through compulsion. Let us not approach it grudgingly, but let us be cheerful. We have more reasons. We have many reasons to be cheerful, even as we give towards God, even as we worship our God. We have more reasons to be cheerful than to be to approach it grudgingly. May the Lord help us. May the Lord give us strength. May the Lord be our shield and guide, even as we go through this day, even as we go through our daily work, even as we go through our businesses. May the Lord protect you. May the Lord protect us. May the Lord be our shield and guide. May He clear all the darkness that may be in your path, even as you go out your today's business. May you be encouraged that despite the challenges that you might be going through, despite anything that may be pulling you down, that God has placed many blessings in your path. If you just sit back and look at your life, you'll see that God has been gracious to you. God has blessed you. God has placed many blessings many blessings on your way, in your family, in everything, and the opportunities that He has given you. And most importantly, even the gift of life. Indeed, God has been gracious to us. We have very many reasons to approach Him with our giving cheerfully. May the Lord bless you this day.